Daniel wiped a streak of oil across his cheek without noticing it, his focus locked on the stubborn bolt beneath the chassis of his old pickup truck, the same truck he'd been coaxing through life for the past decade because a new one was nowhere near his budget as a single dad. The late afternoon heat wrapped around him like a suffocating blanket, the air thick with the dusty smell of his rural neighborhood. Noah, his 6-year-old son, sat on an upside-down bucket nearby, swinging his legs and humming to himself while drawing crooked circles in the dirt with a stick. It should have been a quiet, ordinary Thursday. Work to get the truck running before Daniel's shift, cook a simple dinner of beans and rice, tuck Noah into bed, and collapse on the couch with aching bones and a tired heart. But life never warned you when it was about to tear open. It started with a sound, small, desperate footsteps pounding the road like a warning shot. Daniel slid out from under the truck, blinking against the harsh sunlight, and suddenly 2 little girls came into focus. Twin girls, both no older than 5, identical except for the colors of their dresses. One wore a faded blue dress with missing buttons, the other a pink one with mismatched sandals. Their tiny faces were streaked with dirt and tears. "Help!" the girl in blue cried, grabbing Daniel's arm with both trembling hands. "Please, please help us!" the girl in pink gasped, barely able to breathe between sobs. "Mama! Mama's not waking up!" For a heartbeat Daniel felt his chest cave in. There was terror in their voices, the kind that came from something real, something urgent. He didn't hesitate. He dropped the wrench, scooped Noah up with one motion, and said, "Show me where." The twins turned and ran, their small feet slapping the dusty road, and Daniel followed fast, heart hammering against his ribs. They led him behind a line of scraggly mesquite trees to a tiny sun-bleached trailer that looked like it hadn't felt shade or kindness in years. Its door hung open, the inside dark compared to the blazing outdoors. "She's inside," the girl in pink whimpered. Daniel moved quickly, ducking inside, and the moment he stepped through the doorway the heat hit him like an oven door swinging open. It was stifling, the kind of heat that made your lungs protest. On an old, thin mattress lay a woman in her mid-30s, her dark hair tangled across the pillow, her skin pale and slick with sweat. Her chest rose and fell but weakly, far too weak. "Mama, please wake up," one twin cried, climbing onto the mattress to shake her mother's arm. The woman didn't stir. Daniel knelt beside her and checked her pulse, faint. He touched her forehead, burning hot. Heat stroke, severe dehydration, maybe starvation, all 3. He quickly gathered himself. "Girls," he said gently but firmly, "go outside with Noah. I'm going to help your mom." They obeyed instantly, their tiny hands gripping Noah's as they stepped into the light, all 3 of them terrified but trusting him completely. Daniel lifted the woman carefully, shocked by how light she was, carrying her outside to the narrow strip of shade next to the trailer. He laid her down and ran back in, grabbing every water bottle, every cup, anything that could help. The place was nearly empty. No food, barely any water, signs of struggle everywhere. He returned with what he could and trickled cool water into her mouth, fanning her with a piece of cardboard, soaking a cloth to cool her forehead. Minutes felt like hours until finally, her eyelids fluttered. A weak whisper slipped out. "Lila, May, where are my girls?" The twins ran to her, hugging her arms, crying in raw relief. Daniel exhaled deeply, but just as he started to ask what happened, the rumble of gravel under tires cut through the air. He turned. A sleek black SUV rolled to a stop at the end of the dirt road, utterly out of place in the poverty-scarred landscape. The tinted window slid down. A man in a gray suit looked out, his face expressionless but his eyes sharp and icy. "Step away from them," he said calmly, too calmly. "Those girls belong to me." The twins froze, trembling violently, and their mother's eyes went wide with dread. Daniel felt every muscle in his body lock. Something was terribly, terribly wrong. Part 2. The man stepped out of the SUV with a slow, deliberate confidence that made the air feel tighter, more dangerous, as if the ground itself tensed beneath his polished shoes. He brushed imaginary dust from his expensive sleeve, surveying the scene like a king inspecting peasants rather than people in distress. "Who are you?" Daniel asked, positioning himself slightly in front of the mother and children. The man raised an eyebrow. "Their uncle," he said, each word coated with disdain. "And I'm here to take them." The girls whimpered and clung to their mother, whose breathing was still shallow and uneven. She tried to sit up, panic sparking in her weakening voice. "No, please, you can't, not them," the man scoffed. "You've made a mess of things long enough. Their father didn't intend for them to live in squalor." His gaze drifted to the trailer with a sneer. "I warned you. Sign the guardianship papers. Since you refuse, I'll take the girls myself." Daniel felt something hot ignite inside him. Not just anger, but a fierce protectiveness that came from years of fighting for his own child. "Unless you have legal custody documents," he said evenly, "you're not taking anyone." The man's jaw tightened. "You don't understand who I am." "I don't care who you are," Daniel replied, eyes locked on him. The mother reached for Daniel's arm, her fingers trembling. "Please," she whispered, her words barely audible. "He wants their inheritance. Their father, my husband, left everything to the girls. He'll hide them away until they're old enough for him to control it." Daniel's stomach twisted. The twins were shaking so violently he could feel the tremors through the ground. Noah, bless his brave little heart, stood in front of them, arms spread like a tiny shield beside his father. The man's expression darkened as he pulled out his phone, tapping angrily. "I'll have someone here in minutes," he muttered. "Lawyers, authorities, people who actually matter." Daniel's instincts roared. He moved fast. He lifted the mother into his arms again, her body limp against him, and said to the children, "Get in the truck. All of you." The twins obeyed instantly, running with Noah to the rusty pickup. Daniel secured the mother in the passenger seat, her breath shuddering, and slammed the door. "You're making a mistake," the man shouted, stepping forward. Daniel climbed into the driver's seat and met the man's glare one last time. "No," he said, "I'm correcting one." The engine coughed, rattled, then roared to life. Daniel hit the gas, sending dust flying in a cloud that swallowed the furious man. They sped toward the nearest clinic, miles away, the heat shimmering off the asphalt. The girls cried in the back seat, Noah holding their hands tightly. The mother drifted in and out of consciousness, whispering apologies, names, broken pieces of stories. "It's okay," Daniel kept saying, voice steady. "Stay awake. We're almost there." When they finally reached the small town clinic, nurses rushed out the moment Daniel carried the woman inside. The twins wouldn't let go of him, clinging to his legs as medical staff worked furiously. After nearly an hour, the doctor returned. "She's stable now," he said. Relief flooded the twins' faces. They jumped into Daniel's arms. Again, sobbing into his shirt. When he entered the room, the mother looked at him with fragile gratitude. "You saved my life," she whispered. "And my girls." Her voice cracked. "I can never repay you." Daniel shook his head softly. "Just focus on getting better." But the moment was cut short by the creak of the clinic door. 2 police officers stepped inside. The mother's eyes widened in fear. Daniel felt his jaw set. "Sir," one officer said, "we need to talk about the man who claims custody of the children." Before the mother could collapse into panic, Daniel reached for her hand and held it tightly. "We'll tell them everything," he whispered. "He's not taking them. Not now. Not ever." The officers listened, their expressions shifting from suspicion to shock to outrage as the mother revealed everything her brother-in-law had been trying to do. How he'd seized control of their finances after her husband's death, how he'd threatened her, cut off support, trapped her in that trailer, waiting for her to break so he could take the twins and their inheritance. By the time she finished, one officer had already radioed for backup. Hours later, as the sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky pink and gold, the girls curled against Daniel's sides, exhausted, trusting him the way they trusted their own mother. The doctor returned with paperwork, updates, cautious optimism. The officers came back with news. The man had been detained and would face charges for coercion, fraud, and neglect. When Daniel stepped outside to breathe, the mother called softly from her bed. "Daniel." He turned. Her eyes, though tired, were warm, grateful, and something else, something soft that made his chest feel tight. You walked into our lives by accident, she said. But, I hope you don't walk out. Daniel looked at her, at the twins who already adored Noah, at the fragile but growing hope flickering inside the small clinic room. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to imagine something bigger than survival, something like a future. I'm not going anywhere, he said quietly. And he meant every word.